I'm Keith Quigg. I'm the convener, the chairman of the Joe Berry Awards. I've been working on it now for 15 years, loving every minute of it. Well, almost every minute. It can get pretty hectic at times. With me today, we have Graham Fairbairn, who was the 2013 Joe Berry Award winner. Graham works in Arnott's. And Sarah Hughes, who was 2015 Joe Berry Award winner. Sarah's at home looking after her daughter at the moment, but she's also active business manager in the retail industry. The Joe Berry Award, of course, is its 35th year. Awards that last that long must have something going for them, something that makes it a special event. And I would assume, I should say, by the fact that you people are online this afternoon, that you all have a pretty good reason of wanting to be involved in this award, and you're looking for some advice and some assistance to get you up and running and fingers working feverishly on keyboards. So we'll start with we've got some questions. I think Tyler's here. I'm sorry, I should have introduced Tyler. Tyler's our techo and social media man, responsible for getting all those messages out to you and helping me enormously. So let's go. We had a question that came in earlier from Anita asking, are there restrictions around the type of references that can be used? The answer to that is no, there's no specific restriction, but obviously you would want your references to be relevant, certainly to the topic to which you are writing. But you have to be careful if you are using references from within your own business, that those references are available for common or public use. So to make sure that you are allowing somebody in your organisation to say, yes, that's okay, you can use those particular references. But otherwise, wherever you can, and you can even contact us and we'll give you some assistance if we can from time to time on finding various references. We've got another one, Joseph, from Joseph asking, why are we restricted to 2,500 words? There are a couple of reasons for that. When we first started, when we took over the award 15 years ago, it was unlimited. And the people assessing the essays who were executives, busy executives, basically came back and said, look, we're happy to do this, but we don't have time to pour through 4,000 and 5,000 word essays. And we find that those essays lose the track quite easily. So they can start out as very good essays and then get lost somewhere in the motion. So we went back to them and said, well, what do you want? And they came back and said something around 2,500 words that is punchy and has lots of opinions in it is what we're looking for. We want to know what the people, we want them to be clear on the topic on which they're writing, but also to have an opinion that they pass to us so we can get a bit of a picture of what their real thoughts are about the industry. So it's settled at 2,500 words for your entire essay. And we just simply do that on the bottom of the page, on the Word page. And down the bottom, it'll tell you how many words you've got. And when you finish writing your essay and you're ready to submit, if it's over 2,500 words, you need to go out and rub out a couple here and there to bring it back to your 2,500 words. Once again, if you're having trouble do that, send it to me. Send me a copy and I'll help you get rid of a few words along the way. More than happy to do that. Graham, when you did your essay, what was the process for you to get your words under control?
Yeah, it's a good call out. So hi, everyone. I'm Graham from Arnott's. Won back in 2013 and I judged the essays now. So I've sort of seen both sides of the fence and can kind of help you out a little bit here. What I would say generally is just take the word limits to be a good sense of what kind of essay you should be writing. Like if this was 10,000 words, it would be thesis level, super detailed. That's not the idea. It's supposed to be just an overview of your topic, going deep in a couple of areas and making sure that you save some time at the end to make your recommendations known. What I would say in general is that when essays go wrong with the word limits, it's because they spend far too much time outlining the context and the scenario up front and far too little on the recommendations and the point of view at the end. So what I would say is that when you're doing the researching and starting to draft, make sure that you are saving some of that word count at the end to have a very clear recommendation and the point of view at the end, because ultimately that's the thing that's going to get a judge excited enough about your essay to invite you to the finals round. So don't spend too long spending ages talking about the market share shifts in the Australian market and then forget to talk about what your actual opinion is at the end. Sarah, I'd love to know what you think about that too, if you've had the same experience or not.
Thanks, Graham. Yes, absolutely. I think it's easy to get a little bit caught up at the beginning about providing context and potentially where the industry's at, but you've got to remember that the judges, who are a mixture of sponsors as well as award, I guess, winners, past winners, that is, they're very familiar with the industry. So they work in it, they live and breathe it, and so they will know the context. And of course, it's important to set the scene, but absolutely, to Graham's point, don't waste words on that. Instead, really think deeply about the recommendations that you're making and allow enough, I guess, time within and words within your essay to make those really clear. And, you know, think about them outside of the box too. Like, you might have some ideas that you think maybe are a little bit unusual, but that will be of interest to the judges because they are ultimately looking at their own businesses and trying to work out, you know, what's the next growth option or possibility for them, and what some of the potential headwinds or whatever it might look like. Definitely, yeah, put effort into and priority on your recommendations.
One of the questions that come up here is, what's the difference between an executive summary and an introduction? And they can be very, very specific things, and they can make a lot of difference to the way you engage the person or the people who are assessing your essay. The executive summary doesn't need to be very long. And in fact, you're better off having a fairly succinct executive summary to save words for your arguments. But the executive summary is basically saying, this essay will cover the following topic, and it will argue that this, that, and the other are the key elements of this topic. When you go to your introduction, it's where you want to grab the person reading it, and this is where you say to them, okay, come with me. I want to get you started on this journey. Let's talk about this. And that's when you get into the depth of your essay. So you need both of those. At times it looks like an executive summary is kind of, is it really necessary? But it is, because that's where you grab the attention of the reader, the essay judge. And the second part is when you start taking them on the journey. So don't miss that opportunity. Let's have a run around. Joe, do you have a question?
I was looking at the different topics of the essays. I haven't actually started yet. I've got a pretty clear direction that lines up with my current role in terms of which essay to go with. Is that that's kind of where my passion and my interest is? Is that the best topic for me? I'll kind of just jump straight into that, or should I kind of consider all the other alternatives?
Before I get the other two to have a comment on this, there is two schools of argument. One is, if you can write and you can expand and you can innovate on an essay that is in line with the work that you're doing, it's not a bad way to go. But the other one is to stretch yourself and pick up on a topic that you haven't done a lot of work on before, because two things happen there. You'll research a little bit harder and you won't be biased by the things that you already know. But secondly, you're giving yourself an education in something new, which could, in the long term, be a very, very good career move. Sarah?
Yeah, Joe, thanks for your question. I think it's a good one. As an example, in the year that I won the award 2015, I was a trainee category manager, and I was very involved in some reverse engineering on pricing to benchmark across the market. So looking at essentially pricing across the big three supers, and with the arrival of Aldi, what that meant. And so I was quite involved in, I guess, trying to work out some of how we would innovate in terms of products to meet the market, and that was my day job. And I ended up writing an essay that essentially was asking about what the arrival of Aldi meant for Coles and Woolworths, and what the arrival of fast fashion meant for the incumbents being David Jones and Myer. And so I was passionate about David Jones and Myer because I was super interested in fashion and department stores, but then my day job was very much around the supers. So I think what I'm saying there is that you can bring passion and expertise. If you can bring passion and expertise to a topic and you feel very strongly about it, it's definitely a great place to start. But I would also say, to Keith's point, you might find that you're actually quite interested by another topic, and in researching, you discover actually there's some great things that you can bring to the table that are really interesting and innovative. So, you know, I'm a bit on the fence because I think you can go either way, but in my instance, I guess knew the topic quite well personally and felt very connected and invested in it. And I was able to communicate that through the essay and then through the final judging. So yeah, I think passion's important for sure.
Joe, what topic are you heading towards?
The evolution of online, the consumer behaviours and the consumer behaviour changes in digitisation.
Yeah, well, supply chain is always a good one to talk about because it's got so many aspects to it. But when you do go into those types of questions, you actually are better off being relatively specific in the direction you take rather than taking a broad look at it. Because the listener, the reader wants to learn something. They don't want you to tell them what they already know. So just be aware that you need to move into a specific, well-researched line on those. Not difficult, just watch how you go about it. Meg?
Yeah, those are great points. Just one quick one I'd add. I have a very simple philosophy for this one. Let me put it like this. The single biggest obstacle standing between all of you and winning the award is actually just doing the essay, like sitting down, researching and writing it. So I think when it comes to picking a topic, you just want something that is interesting and engaging and something you feel passionately enough that you're prepared to sit down and dedicate the time to doing the researching and the writing. That's really it. I mean, if you can do it by doing an area that you're interested in or an area that you're currently engaged in, whatever that looks like, as long as it is something that grabs enough interest from you that you're prepared to sit and engage with it over a couple of months, happy days. That's what it needs to be.
Thanks, Joe. Meg, have you have a question?
Mine's probably to do with the research side of it. I know in a previous session, Graham was explaining sort of how we can, I guess, reach out and ask people that work in the industry, I guess, questions about things to do with the topic. And I just sort of want to know if that's something that we can specifically reference, or if that's something that we should go back to find a formal printed, I guess, document or something that sort of has those ideas in it.
That's a good question. Graham, while I'm thinking about that, what's your thought?
Wouldn't stress too much about it. At the end of the day, when it comes to research, you are looking to find a way to give your essay a bit of distinction versus some of the others. And where I see people go wrong with research, it's where they Google 4 to 5 Sydney Morning Herald articles and kind of that's job done. The essays that really distinguish themselves are the ones where they go above and beyond to try to secure new learning, to find a way to move a conversation forward on a topic that's quite difficult. Where I've seen people do it well in the past has been consulting white papers, ASX filings, and then specifically to your point, I do see people just reaching out to industry leaders and getting their thoughts, capturing them on a page, just cited as an interview with so-and-so. I believe Clem, the successor who came after me, reached out to the Chobani founder and got some time interviewed with him.
Yep.
I know other people who've just cold contacted someone on LinkedIn and said, hey, you don't know me, I'm doing this Retail Executive Awards and I'd really love 15 minutes to talk to you. And you would be surprised how many people are willing to give you the time off the back of that. So as long as the research you're doing is quality and it brings in a decent perspective and a new way of thinking about an intangible problem, that's awesome. That's exactly what you need.
Ezra, who was at Lion Dairy at the time, she went and interviewed the managing director of Village Roadshows because she wanted to get a picture from a completely different angle on the topic on which she was writing, and found it to be enormously interesting outside the essay itself. She just learned a hell of a lot about by simply stepping up and doing that sort of approach to other people. But make sure you do it internally wherever you can as well. There's lots of talent inside, or lots of information inside your own businesses.
And
yeah, I would just sorry, Meg, I would just add to that. I think that's an important element that both Keith and Graham have touched on. Obviously, it's important in terms of what you're writing and how you write, but equally, this is a really, really good opportunity, one that you may not get otherwise, to engage with people in your business, whether it's your direct line manager or someone further up the chain, and or someone at a similar organisation, maybe another supplier or potentially a retailer or whoever it is, to seek them out. Because more often than not, you'll find that people are quite interested in the award. It obviously raises your own profile in terms of your keenness to participate. It also means that you might get some learnings you otherwise wouldn't have had the opportunity to get. So on many levels, it's absolutely worth doing. Your essay will be the richer for it, but so will you, I guess, individually.
Emma's also asking, are we able to reference testimonies from speeches, conferences, etc.? Look, the answer is yes, but you've got to be very, very careful and make sure that you reference them properly, that they are, the inverted commas and all those sort of things that clearly indicate who did it. But the other side of it is make sure that you don't take up a whole lot of word space using those references. Put parts of the reference in, or referring to something somebody said at a conference rather than the whole thing that they said. A lot of times you'll find the readers have got some indication of that comment, that person, that process. By all means use them, but just be careful with them. And on your other part, personal pronouns discouraged. Actually, no, but not in abundance. There are certain parts inside everybody's essay where we want to know what you think. So when you've done a whole heap of research and you've come up with this line of debate through your topic, and you get to the point you say, well, actually, I think at this particular time, this is what should be happening, then that's what we want to know, because that personal pronoun proposition actually brings in some passion as well. It shows that you've got your head around the topic and you're prepared to put yourself into that picture. The other side of it is, I think this and I did that, and when I was here, I did this, and they go, oh, you lose me pretty quickly, because it's not an essay about you. It is because you wrote it, but it's not about you, it's about the topic. So the answer to both are yes, you can do both. Just be careful how you go with them. Conrad, you got a question?
No, I do not. Sorry.
Okay, keep walking.
Thank you.
Rachel.
I had one I just put on the chat then, just talking about focusing on your opinion, your recommendation. How much of the essay should be that? Like you're saying, don't spend too much on the context. Are you saying kind of 50%? Like what type? Is there no set rules, or what's your opinion basically on that?
Well, let's go to the former essay writers first of all. I'll finish that one off. Sarah.
Look, I think thanks for your question, Rachel. I think it is important, just to clarify, to set the context very clearly, i.e. the state of the industry as it stands. And evidently, you'd probably be wise to acknowledge, well, it'd be hard not to, but to acknowledge the situation with COVID. What I would say though is that, if you're reading your drafted essay and it just feels like there's a lot in the top that probably doesn't need to be there, the answer is it probably doesn't need to be there. And you should definitely focus on your recommendations. So I would say it's not so much, a hard number, like 50% this, 50% that. I would say if the essay reads well, it's punchy, it's clear, it finds recommendations that are, I guess, interesting and innovative, but equally acknowledge the state of play and potentially headwinds that need to be considered for implementation. I think that's important. So I don't have has to be X or Y, but definitely I think when you read it, and that's a good point, you should have third parties, or everyone should have third parties read your essays to check for grammar, to check for syntax, to check for, I guess, argument, whether it makes sense, whether your exec sum, properly summarises the contention of your essay, that there are no silly typos sitting in a footnote somewhere that sort of distract the reader. Those kind of things that will elevate your essay again, because it means the reader is sort of taking.
Sorry, did you have people from your company read it for you? Is that what you did?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, and I practiced later on, like when I was presenting. I had a lot of support. I worked for Coles at the time, and I had a lot of support from my line manager and corporate affairs and different teams within the business that really helped me. And we're excited by the whole Joe Berry Award. So I think that's another thing. It's an excuse for you to meet people and refine your essay. And I don't know anyone, like I'm sure Graham would agree, I don't know anyone who would say, sorry, I don't have time, or I'm not interested, or, in terms of wanting to help young people, in their careers. So I'd say just ask the question.
Yeah, frankly, I got my mum to read my essay as well, just someone who didn't have any knowledge of the industry but was there to check for typos. It's a good question, Rachel. There's two things I'd say. Number one, you need to share as much context as is needed to make your recommendations look well considered and robust. That's kind of the short way of thinking about it. What I would say more generally is that it helps to think about what you're trying to do with the essay. Now, your objective with the essay is to prove to the reader that you're going to make a great finalist in the presentation round. And part of that is about having a clear, unambiguous recommendation for industry leaders. Now, you've got an opportunity with this essay to capture the attention of an industry leader who's reading this. VP level is kind of normally where those judges come in. Put yourself in their shoes. Like, what do you want them to do? Can you put out a recommendation that takes into account all industry participants, not just the side of one? Can you put a recommendation that takes into account multiple aspects of the same problem? What does the consumer think? What would the operational side think? What are the commercials? Why would a well-educated CEO not already have done this? So if you start thinking like in that way, you get a sense of how much context you need, like just enough for all of that to look robust, well-considered, and worth the time to read, basically. That's it. That's all you have to do.
It's a good time to look at a couple of things there. That the judging panel, the way your essay goes out once we get it and it's accepted in, we've got about 70 executives across the industry who read essays, and we work on a matrix of every judge gets 5 essays, every essay goes to 5 judges. But we don't send your essay to 5 retailers or 5 suppliers or 5 others. You'll get a retailer, a supplier, a former winner, a service provider. We look at the width of the industry and we try to make sure that your essay is being read by a whole lot of people. So when it gets good scores, it's because the whole industry thinks it's a good essay. So getting back to your point about the opinion and those sort of things, it depends on the line you've taken through your essay. But in reality, most of that will come in your recommendations or your conclusions at the end. But it's good always to put through the essay at certain points a comment that says, having done, and I'm not giving you words, just ideas, having done a lot of research, I'm doubtful that this is the right direction for the industry to take. So there's the opinion proposition. But what you've got to do then is you've then got to move on and say, now, because of this opinion, this is where I think it should go. Don't put the opinion, I don't think it's right, but then not tell us what you think is going to be right. Yeah. So it's a mixture of things. I think the others got it pretty much right. It's all about how you write the essay. And you can write your essay and you've got 2,500 words or a little under, and you go back and say, okay, I'm not in this essay. Where can I put myself in this essay? You can go back and do a little bit of editing and rewriting. Rachel, what topic are you considering?
I'm kind of tossing up between 3 at the moment, actually. So defining promotion, the new market, the health and wellness trend, and then also the necessity of flexibility in working conditions. So yeah, I'm still kind of exploring all of them.
One of the things that I like to see in essay writers is not to jump head first into their research side of things. I think one of the best things you can do with topics like this is just sit somewhere comfortably with your coffee or your drink or whatever it is you want to do, and think about the topic. And if you can come up in your head with 4 or 5 things that you immediately think about that particular topic, then it's a pretty strong topic for you. If you sit down and you think about it for a while and you can't really come up with much, then push it to one side, because it's not in your head, it's not in your field. It sounds good, it's interesting, but let's be fair, I don't know much about that. And you'll find when you sit down to write an essay based on a topic where it's already somewhat ingrained into you, even if it's a challenge, you'll write a much better essay, because you'll be wanting to get somewhere, or right from the start, rather than starting an essay and hoping you get to the end. Now, fill in there as well. For all of you, I'm more than happy to take draft essays, and it can be the first page and a half or the first 20 pages. Well, it won't be 20 pages, but whatever. It doesn't matter. Send them to me, and I'll do my very best within a couple of hours to have them back to you. And I'll do all sorts of things like put lines through things and take stuff out and highlight and change your spelling errors and all those sorts of things for you. But I always put a little tag on the end that says, I'm more than happy to do this, but I am not writing your essay for you. So you take these suggestions and you throw them away, or you take these suggestions and you use them. That's up to you, but I am more than happy to do it. And I'll take as many essays as come in, and I'll do it 3 or 4 times for you if you like. So don't hesitate. Thank you, Rachel. Emma, a question?
I think all of mine have been answered, thanks, Keith. My main one was whether or not we're able to sort of reference testimonies and things like that, but I think I'm pretty clear on that now, so thank you.
What topic are you looking at?
I'm looking at flexible working conditions, something that I've kind of been on my soapbox about for a while at work, so yeah, I'm looking forward to writing about that.
We had a seminar this morning that 6 Degrees were running for the finalists of both the Joe Berry and the scholarship this morning. There were two seminars. And that came up as being something that will be talked about right through most of next year. The Paul Ball, who was heading it up, said that he knows 150 executives across the retail industry who are all looking at that and sitting on their hands going, what is it that we're going to do?
So it's going to be challenging to bring something new to it, I think. So it's a good challenge. It
just reaches so many different areas. So don't get carried away with it. Make sure you find your pathway and be solid. And remember, it can be a black and white. You can finish up with half of the industry saying, no, get back to work. And the other half saying, no, stay where you are. We think it's great. So opinions will count.
Also, actually, it would be interesting to know everyone's opinion, I think, on whether or not we should try to, I guess, handle the whole question, because I think that question in particular is a huge one, and there are a couple of different elements to it. Are we supposed to try and address all elements of that whole question, or is it best to sort of home in on one part of it?
Well, it's a question posed as the topic to be used. So the intention would be that you do look at it as a whole. Having said that, there's nothing stopping you from picking a key element within that, mentioning some, but concentrating on a more specific line. We don't get down to the nitty-gritty of actually going back and saying, oh, no, we can't have this, you didn't answer the question. That doesn't happen. But if you are sending me drafts and things like that, I would be saying things to you like, yeah, don't forget, you got to look at this as well. But no, you're fine. It's flexible. It's very, very much flexible. Meg, we didn't ask you what topic you were looking at.
I'm tossing up between 2 of them at the moment as well. I'm looking at the necessity of flexibility in working conditions, which ironically, I haven't worked from home at all throughout the whole pandemic. We've still been in field. And the consumer behaviour changes and digitisation. So looking between those 2 at the moment.
Graham's missing the water cooler. He's having a big problem with that.
Yeah, I hated working from home. There's two interesting topics. I think when I was looking at them, my first thing is for the flexibility one. I think the trick is going to be how you will bring true rigor to that question. Because my worry with that one is that a lot of people will come in and just kind of espouse their own perspectives based on what they sort of feel about flexible working conditions. I think the essays that will really distinguish themselves in that one will be the ones that are able to bring some kind of more academic theoretical framework of, hey, it's super confusing. There's lots of different opinions out here. Here is what you, Mr. and Mrs. CEO, need to think about flexible working conditions based on something just a little bit more tangible than just what certain people think. Just my own opinion on that one. But that's typically when you see a question pop up like that, that's very relevant to a lot of people. They tend to talk about it from their own perspective, and that's when it just starts to get a bit fluffy.
Hugh Longman, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Hugh, your name's been cropping up for a few years now. You've had a few runs at Joe Berry.
Yeah, I had a crack maybe a few years ago. Yeah. So yeah, I'm obviously looking at all the topics at the moment and just trying to pick the right one, like I think a lot of people on this call.
So you're on the retailer side?
Yeah, I'm on the retail side, correct.
Okay. So you got a little bit of the opportunity in there, both supply chain, working conditions, but certainly the promotional aspects of the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a few different topics there that sort of fit into my mold, which is good. But I think the online one's quite interesting, especially I work in the grocery industry of retail, and I think that one sort of pricks my ears a bit because it's obviously a big conversation at the moment, especially after the year that we've had.
Do you have a question?
No, I actually don't. No, a lot of the guys have asked a lot of the questions I had, so I'm all good.
All right. Thank you, Hugh. Nathan, are you there?
Yeah, I certainly am. I do have a small question, and excuse me if you've already answered it in prior talks and whatnot. I was after past examples of winning papers.
Yes. Tyler, we've just redone the website. There might have been a few changes. The previous essays are available on the website.
Oh, fantastic! Well, that was incredibly easy.
Yep.
Yeah, just on my side, I'm not sure how the other contestants go, but I'm from a very much science background, and I'm not very used to throwing opinions into essays. So very excited for the challenge there, and very excited for the competition in general. It's a great initiative, so thank you. What
are you thinking about as a topic?
I'm thinking consumer behaviour changes and digitisation. I think it's it is very poignant at the moment, and it was everyone had their hands forced as far as COVID goes. So I think there's a lot of information in the data that we could definitely delve into that hasn't been looked at before. New ground makes things a lot more exciting.
Remember that the question does say, what is your prediction? So we're expecting people with that sort of background and interest to actually try and paint a picture of what it will look like in the future. Sarah, what's your thoughts on the consumer behaviour changes?
I mean, for me, this topic really stands out, mainly because it's exactly to Nathan's point, extremely poignant. They're all very poignant. That's the whole point. So each year, Keith, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe a couple of the judges sit down and with Keith and sort of look at the industry and come up with some broad topics which all have very sort of salient application. But yeah, in particular, I guess, if I think of my own situation, recently I'm on maternity leave, and I have absolutely gone headlong into online purchasing at all hours of the day. And that's been quite fun. And I think I've personally noticed a huge improvement within the space. And I think absolutely there are some key challenges and a lot to talk about. But I think here yeah, it's important to think really deeply and have some very tangible things that can be implemented, and of course to bring your opinion to the forefront, because all of us are living and breathing this, a bit like the flexibility in working from home. Exactly to Graham's point, a lot of us know quite a lot about this already, so you really need to think about, well, what's the ground that's been covered and what's the additional sort of innovation or interesting aspects that I can personally bring to this topic. And there's, you know, a number of different ways that you can do that. But I definitely think, you know, the judges will be super interested in all the topics, because all the topics relate back to business issues that they're likely facing on the daily and strategically ongoing. So again, just always think about what sort of extra value are you bringing through your answers that are of interest to the panel and to the industry more broadly. So I'd almost sense check everything that you're saying in that way.
It's a good segue into bringing up the reason, or part of the reasons why you would take the trouble to write an essay and submit. The reason I have 70 odd executives who are prepared to read essays and provide their scores is because they're busy people and they don't have the time to sit and do the research work that you will do as entrants into this award. So it's an opportunity for you to actually provide some education back into the industry, specifically within your own organisations. If you let people know in your organisation that this is what you're doing, and they know what the topic is that you're going to write about, they will want to know what you come up with. So your profile, your exposure within the industry gets lifted because you are seen as somebody who is doing two things. One is you're taking the initiative to put yourself into an award. But secondly, you are researching something that has a significant effect on this business. So make sure you let people know what you're doing, get their help even in the process, but understand that it's not just internally, that your submitted essay becomes part of the education of the industry. It's very, very important in that process. Okay, anything general from anybody?
Just on that, when you're saying about reaching out to people internally, so for Graham and Sarah, how did you guys go about reaching out to people within your own organisations? Like, did you kind of know the exact topic that you're going to write about and you kind of had your own opinion formed before you spoke to anyone, or did you kind of from the get-go reach out to people? And if there were people that you didn't normally work with on a day-to-day basis, how did you go about that?
I mean, I did not have a finished essay in my mind when I started. My experience was very much guided by the people internally, and not even just in some of the information and the perspective, but just in the support. One of the great things about Arnis is that they are just so supportive about this award. So when I was in your shoes, kind of at this stage of the cycle, I was really unsure about a couple of topics and unsure if I even really wanted to do this, to be honest. So I was probably reaching to like the sort of director level, kind of the people who are at that sort of senior level who understand the value of the award. And they were the people who were kind of stealing me that this was something that was really worthwhile. And I would learn a lot, and not even just in the stuff of the topic, but, you know, raising your profile and feeling better about having an opinion in some of those softer, intangible things as well. But once it got going after that, it was really not that difficult to reach out to different people in functional areas that I had no relation to, like finance and supply chain and operations. And the second you said doing the Joe Barry Award, I would like to talk to you about this very interesting industry related topic. Oh my God, I mean, they're dying. It's like, oh great, half an hour, put it in. I would love to sit and talk about it and engage you with this. I mean, it really was just no issue at all. And I would say that was probably the most important thing in helping me to develop the direction for my essay, because the people at that senior level are the ones who have that 1,000-foot view and can kind of tell you, look, you can get stuck in the minutia, but just top line, here's how you would be thinking about it. Here's some considerations. There are winners and losers. Here's what they would both look like. And once you sort of have that broad overarching, okay, I think I know what's going on here, then you can go in and get stuck in with some of your granular research and really bring that detail to the fore.
Yeah, thank you.
Sarah, you're reaching out?
Yeah, I would definitely, it's very similar to Graham. So I was at Coles at the time, I was a graduate, and I had, through the program, been able to meet lots of different teams and people. And, you know, I'd had, I guess, a year or so, a bit over a year to really learn a bit more about the business. And then when I actually wasn't aware of the Joe Berry Award, firstly. So it was actually my line manager at the time who said, have you heard of this? You know, maybe have a think. Anyway, to be totally honest, I was completely overwhelmed when I first saw the essay topics, because they are in depth. You know, you all have day jobs, which are no doubt extensive. We all know that retailers, the whole industry, everyone works really hard, and that's what makes it, you know, so awesome in a lot of ways. We're all super passionate and doing things in a million miles an hour. So I was a bit like, how do I have capacity to give this what it needs? But in fact, I guess, you know, and don't feel worried if you're sort of now and you're like, oh, I've got Christmas and when am I going to have time? I wrote my essay in February, and that's totally fine. You might be someone that wants to start in November, digest a few things. Then when you feel a bit more comfortable about your chosen topic, you know, whether it's now or January, reach out at that point. That's totally, you know, a personal decision, and you should feel as though you can do that, because exactly to Graham's point, there's lots of people within your organisations who will very keenly want to support you, and that might be through, you know, giving you half an hour to chat through their ideas on the topic, or it might be that you come to them saying, and in fact, that's a good point. It's the sheer fact of writing the essay is a really good way to introduce yourself to someone you would usually perhaps not interact with. So definitely use the award in that sense. So, you know, if you've chosen your topic and you've got some good ideas, but you want to clarify things, for example, with a subject matter expert in supply chain, or someone who you know is quite involved in your business's HR approach on working from home, or someone who maybe runs your e-commerce business or part of your business, by all means reach out to them. And, you know, don't feel like you shouldn't, or that your essay is only drafted and therefore you're not ready enough because it's not final, and that you're wasting someone's time, because you're not. Obviously be prepared when you meet these people, but equally, you know, back yourself is what I'm saying. Because Graham and I both did that, and at the time we didn't know obviously that it would go, you know, as far as it did. And, you know, it was obviously one of the best things we've done, and definitely the other winners would say exactly the same thing. So yeah, I think in summary, it's a very long way of saying use the topics as a way to meet people you otherwise wouldn't, and don't feel at all ashamed about that. Just go for it.
Yeah, just for clarity for you all at this stage as well. At the end of the judging of the essay part of the Joe Berry Award, it's the top 6 essays that get invitations to go to the judging panel. If we finish up with 6 essays on what it's like in flexible working, then that's what happens. We don't differentiate between topics. We don't differentiate on where people are placed. It's simply the 6 best essays that will get that invitation to present in front of the judges. The other point from Sarah, we have a really, really great connection with Nielsen and with Citigroup, Craig Wolford, who heads up the retail aspects of Citigroup. And we get them each year to send us a list of the trends that are current, to the point that they will still be current in June next year. Because you're starting in November to write an essay that won't be presented to a judging panel if you are a finalist for 8 months. So we've got to try and find you topics that are going to have the relevance at that time to keep you in a position to present solidly in front of a judging panel. What we do, of course, is if you do make that final 6, is we then say to you, okay, it's 6 months since you wrote this, take some time and update it, bring it up to speed, make sure that when you do go in to present, you are presenting based on not only the topic, you've got to do that, but the topic plus whatever else has become evident since that particular time. So it's certainly not a block out proposition. Again, it's about making sure that we get the very best essay from each of you, so that we can make our judging on really good quality work. Other questions? Anything I've missed or anything you don't know about in the rules and regulations that I can help you with?
Is the criteria for the for the judging of the essays like what are the you've talked a lot about the making sure the back end of it is quite meaty with like your kind of recommendations. Can you give us any idea of what I suppose the criteria for the scores are? Is it kind of like the top 6 scores go through to the presentation, or is it more like we think this is a really kind of innovative topic and really innovative answer to it, so this is something we'd really like to see presented?
We don't touch it. The criteria is relatively simple, and that is your ability to provide a summary and an introduction to your work, the content of your work and its flow, your ability to use research in a positive manner to suit the story that you are telling, and your ability to present a conclusion that provides an opportunity for the readers to say, well, I haven't thought of that. So they're the sort of, they're fairly simple, but they're the main things. If you write an essay that's really good in parts, these people will pick you to pieces very quickly. Yeah, look, this was great, you were going well, but it didn't follow through. I got lost somewhere. It came back at the end, but in the middle, I didn't know where it went. It's those sorts of things that they're looking for. When you go in front of the judging, if you are lucky enough to go in front of the judging panel in June next year, it's very, very much a similar thing, except we don't tell the judges exactly what we want them to do. We give them a piece of paper that's got those sorts of criteria listed on it. But in the end, it gets down to your ability, Joe, to be able to present to a panel of leaders, if you like, industry experts, and feel like you're one of them. And that's the big trick. And for Sarah and for Graham, both of them, part of them winning was their ability to stand in front of that group of people and be educators of those people, not young people trying to impress, but people who were saying, you've got to listen to me because this is what I'm telling you. It was that kind of proposition. So no, the essays, as I said, it's a simple process. You will get 5 or 6 scores depending on the essays come in. We average those scores, and at the end of it, the 6 highest averages receive an invitation.
Cool, makes sense.
Okay.
Thanks.
Graham, would you like to give us a little bit of a pep talk on what we can do to make sure we get ourselves with a pen in hand or a typewriter board?
Yeah, this is the same spiel I give a lot of the internal candidates here, but let me put it like this. There's never an easy time to do the Joe Berry Awards. Like, there's never a point where you're super cushy in your job and there's nothing going on in your personal life and you've got nothing else to do except write the essay. It does take a bit of time and it does require you to make a bit of a commitment to be able to carve it out. If you were to ask me what I was doing in my work life in January and February 2013, I would not be able to tell you. Like, I cast my mind back then and it's like, I remember being busy, I remember having a lot to do, but I don't remember what it was. What I do remember is giving this essay a damn good crack, learning an awful lot through the way, meeting a whole lot of amazing people, and then being able to stand in front of a judging panel, like 25 senior executives, and to Keith's point, just educating them and having that dialogue. That is a once in a lifetime opportunity that you'll never get again. And for me, that was the springboard for a lot of other great things. Like, I applied to Harvard Business School afterwards, and I was lucky enough to get in. And you just look at, like, that was a real inflection point in my life. That was the moment where it sort of went from just chugging along the day to day to being able to do something really special with your life. So, I mean, I know it's quite a grandiose proclamation, but I think my point is just that it's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to require a little bit of time, but it is so worth it in the end. It is so, so worth it. And even if you don't come out on top as the winner, just the people that you meet along the way and the profile you raise internally, I've never seen anyone where it doesn't pay out. It's worth every minute that you put into it.
Sarah?
I mean, yeah, to be honest, I'll just absolutely reiterate what Graham has said. There is really never a good time, and there wasn't when I sort of thought, I toyed with the idea, to be honest, about writing the essay. And then when I, literally did put pen to paper, I, had many moments where I was sort of like, can I give this everything and what it needs? And, it's one of those things, the more you sort of, once you start, you can kind of, quite quickly find that, okay, actually I'm very interested in this topic and I really want to write about it. And exactly to Graham's point, you won't regret it at all, because regardless of what stage you proceed to, there will be learnings, there will be connections, there will be things that you would not have had access to otherwise. And, it's one of those things where it's a really fantastic opportunity. And to Graham's point, like, I've met some amazing people. I still have, great relationships with people I met a good 5 years ago when I first entered this award. I feel part of a very strong community of very driven people who want the best for the industry, and you'll become part of that just by writing your essay. And, I learn stuff all the time. Like, we're all retail geeks at the end of the day, and we live and breathe it. But, you're also meeting these other people who share lots of ideas and potentially have different opinions, but equally are all trying to do their best by each other in the industry. So for me, it's super motivating, and I'm sure you'll find it the same. Even if you're writing your essay and it's 10 o'clock at night and it's the last thing you want to be doing, actually, think, I guess, more broadly to Graham's point, you're not going to remember what you were doing at work at that time, but you will absolutely remember writing your essay wherever that was, because, it's something interesting and beyond, I guess, what you do in your day-to-day. And for that reason, it gives you great opportunities. So definitely do it.
There's no other award around the world that we're aware of, anything like the Joe Berry Award. It's the only one that allows all parts of a retail industry to compete, but it also is the only one then, on the other hand, that enables us to tell the whole industry about you. And we do that. So as your registrations come in, we send notes out to your employers to say, hey, did you know that so-and-so has registered to get in the Joe Berry Award? Would you please give them as much help as they need? When you make the finals, we make sure that the whole industry knows that you're a finalist. You will, of course, have that opportunity, should that come, to present to a team of 25 or so judges on a panel who will never forget you, because they are really, really interested people. Some of them will tell me, or do tell me, that the first thing they put in their diary every year is the date for Joe Berry. And they block out everything else because that's where they want to be. It's that important to them. So for that purpose, and to finish off, is we're here to help. Graham will help, Sarah will help, a whole lot of the alumni, the winners of the Joe Berry Award, will give you help, and I can give you those introductions if you wish. I will give you all the help I possibly can. I don't judge. I'd love to, but it's better I don't, because then I can have a lot of fun helping you make sure that your essay is one of the best that we're going to get, and doing those sort of things. Thank you for taking the time out. I know it's past the gin hour, but there's still time. Graham and Sarah, appreciate it very much. I'll talk to you again later, but thank you all. Good luck with it. Don't forget, we're here to help.
Yes, good luck, everyone. All the best.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Graham. Thanks.